Hello there. My name is Drew Styling. Welcome to the 11th episode of Adventures in Job Searching. Today, I have the pleasure of having Maria Tanner join us. Again, for everyone that's been watching, sharing, liking, all that stuff, thank you so much. Thank you for subscribing. That means the world to me. Both, follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, all that. We really appreciate that. So, Maria, thanks so much for coming on the show. What would you like guests to know about you, and kind of what profession would you define yourself as?
Yeah, so I'm just a person in Texas. I'm 43, I believe I am, and I'm currently open to hire. I am in the government space, so I was a director
Hmm.
of government contracting. I've done that for about a little over 5 years now. Kind of started my position at one company and worked my way up 20 years within that company, and then progressed to the
Hmm.
role that I was just previously in. And yeah, now I'm open and looking for work.
As I've realized, the tagline for this show is, the podcast you never want to be invited to appear on.
Yeah.
Anything you want to share about how or why the last job ended?
Yeah, so that role was just, and it was impacted as a reduction in force, is what.
So it's, middle of February 2026 now. When did you get the news? Like, how long would you say that you've been on the market?
Yeah, so it was actually just 2 weeks before Christmas. So it was a little bit of a shock.
Wow. Right.
Yeah, it definitely threw us for a loop. Um,
Right.
so a bit of a challenge.
And so what's kind of the us in your life that has been impacted by this job search and
Yeah.
unemployment as well?
Yeah, so I'm married. I've been married for 23 years. So it's my husband, my two girls,
Congratulations.
and thank you, and my
How
two
old are the
Frenchies.
girls?
Yeah, they're 21 and 16.
Okay. So has the older one entered the workforce at this point?
She
Or is she in
has.
school?
She graduated from cosmetology school, so she's kind of navigating
Okay.
her world through that profession.
Okay, great. That is wonderful. What sort of work does your husband do?
He's in the warehouse area, so he's a supervisor at Cardinal Health, which is kind of where
Wonderful.
my stuff was too.
Right. So I guess the first question is, and I'm sorry, did you say it's been like 3 months or so since that layoff?
Yeah, yeah, about
Okay.
3 months, yeah.
So what was the first feeling? Did you have a sense that it was coming, or was it all of a sudden one day you got that email with that HR person included on it?
Yeah, I think we kind of knew that there was something on the horizon. Unfortunately, I'm kind of under can't explain too much information
Right,
of
of
what was
course.
going
Yeah.
on, but definitely I think we kind of knew it was a possibility. Um, Based on, a call that we got on a Friday on where the path of the company was going, and then they were going to kind of take the weekend to see what's what. And then that following Tuesday, I got a call from our VP of Client Services and the like a person over, like, I guess you'd say kind of finance, and basically just said, today's your last day. Read me a letter, said you can sign off, we'll pay you, until X day, and then you're done. That's it. I didn't get a severance package or anything like that, so it was literally, up until that day, and then that was it. So I feel the one thing I will take from that is I feel like I handled it pretty professionally. Maybe it was just being in shock of the whole thing, and just, I've been impacted in roles in the past, but this one I think did catch me a little off guard in that fact. And I think the other thing too is, not having being able to be presented some sort of a package to fall back on. I think that was the other struggle, because then it was like, okay, great, now what do I do? So
Handle it professionally. What does that mean in your terms?
yeah, so I understand it's a business decision. It wasn't anything that was my fault. It was not anything based on my performance or my ability to do the job and do the job well.
Right.
It was strictly a business decision. I was not the only one that was impacted. It's been going on in waves. So because of that, when they explained this to me, I fully wanted to understand, yes, it was just a reduction in force, nothing to do with my performance. And I actually, explained to the VP of client sales, I hope that, through this whole thing, if you're able to retire, because it's hard, it's tough, that you're able to do that as well and get some sort of relief, because I know that this process has not been easy for anybody. So I think it was after that everything kind of hit me.
Yeah, so that's a really, I think the shock factor is something that a lot of people aren't prepared for. It's almost like I've heard a lot of people say at first they're almost not upset. They're too in
Mhm.
shock to be upset. So do you remember what that was like? Like, what was either in hours or days between, the shock versus the next wave of emotion? How long did that last?
I will say it was probably the very next day. The first thing
Mm,
I did was like, okay, now I got to file for unemployment. How do I do that? I've never done that
mm,
before. It was not anything that anybody kind of prepares you for that. And then
mm-hmm,
after that, I think that night and through the weekend, I was on LinkedIn, and I will tell you, I was applying for positions. One thing that I kind of struggled with through the LinkedIn thing was the recruiters. As soon as you kind of pull yourself up to open to hire, you get like this spam of people or recruiters stating like, "Hey, let me take a look at your resume. What are you looking to do?" And that I feel like is a cautionary tale in itself. I don't know how many of these recruiters I've learned to navigate to kind of check your resources first, to see if they're accredited recruiters. I kind of fell into this trap of my emotions where it was like, send me your resume. Okay, well, you need to do X, Y, and Z. Let me send you to this, company, and they'll update your resume, and then it's going to cost you X dollars to do it. And then if you do that, then did you look at your negotiation letter? Did you look at, a cover letter? Did you look at, your LinkedIn profile? And by the way, every one of those things costs money. And if you want to do that, that's what's going to hit you to be hired. Your rate will go up and resumes will be reviewed, and you'll be looked at for jobs. And I think just kind of being in that emotional state of I need something, I was like, okay, okay, okay. But then at some point I was like, I can't afford this. Like, I don't know when I'm going to get a job and what that's going to look like. And so I kind of had to just like stop myself in my tracks at that point and slow down for a minute. But definitely a learning experience through that.
do you think that any of them were legitimate or all of them were just trying to prey on, your emotional state in that moment?
I do feel that there was maybe one to two that were legitimate. Once I kind of got out of the initial shock of what was going on, I kind of started to learn to navigate, to look at who these people actually were. Were they actual recruiters? What company were they recruiting for? And things like that. But I think more so than not, as soon as I told them, like, hey, I can't afford this. This is not something that's sustainable for me. All of a sudden, their emails just kind of dropped to the wayside.
And looking back, how do you feel now that, in one of the hardest moments of your life, there's people just ready to prey on you and try to take advantage of you?
I kind of felt scammed, but I also feel like, gosh, there's an opportunity here to educate people in these situations, because it's sink or swim in some instances for people. Not everybody has a situation to where, they're either offered some sort of severance package for a year, or that they have someone, that one income is not going to affect a whole household, or that they have a complete savings put aside and that they're good and they have an opportunity to kind of step back and determine, is this the right path for me? What do I need to do? Anything like that. So for me, I was like, here's an opportunity to really educate people on this new world of unemployment, and what does that look like? How does that impact us? What are some opportunities and tools that you can use, to really get your name out there and not fall for, these types of situations.
Yeah. A lot of people might not realize just how little unemployment pays. Was that a shock to
Mhm.
you when you saw what the actual weekly number was?
Yeah, it definitely was. And I can see why they say it's not sustainable, especially when you work, towards a certain, job, career, pay, salary, and unemployment gives you a fraction of that, it's definitely a real eye opener. And then the next thing you start doing is, okay, what things am I cutting out? I got to trim some fat here. We got to get rid of some things that, are luxuries or things that maybe we don't need now and we're down to the bare minimum. So it really makes you kind of focus in on your finances for sure, and seeing, am I underwater? What are my options? Where do I go from here?
Yeah, I mean, that's, a very unfortunate reality of job searching that it's different for everyone based on what their financial realities are. If you're someone
Hmm.
that has, 3 months, 6 months, a year of emergency fund put aside, you can afford to be pickier. If not, you have to maybe start hitting the pavement right away. And,
Yeah.
in a way that can almost hurt your career path long term if you have to get in something that's not the right fit, and then all of a sudden you step down a level. One thing that my fifth guest, Michelle, talked about was the importance of grieving a job loss. Do you think that
Hmm.
is something that you've done these last few months?
I did. I did. And where I struggled with that though is how it kind of impacted, I think, not only me, but my family, and kind of how I showed up for them. I think because I had the conversation with my husband, which was like, I kind of set the tone for the family and how we were going to navigate through this. And I will tell you, it sounds bad, but ChatGPT really has kind of helped me focus in a little bit more into, like, it's okay to feel these feelings. It's okay to give them their moment.
I'm gonna stop you. I'm gonna stop you there. What sounds bad about that? That sounds a
I,
little
I,
self-judgmental there.
um, I guess because it's not something I've really explored a ton of, and going through the situation and kind of talking to friends, we had a couple who said, it was a gentleman in this marriage, and he said it's actually kind of been a therapist for us. You can ask these questions, and they chat gives you some real life answers. And I feel kind of, I don't know if you've ever watched the show Reba, but it kind of reminds me of like this OnStar episode that they had where it was like talking to just some person out in the universe and them giving you this advice. And it kind of threw me for a loop. But yeah, so I mean that's just kind of a resource. It's not like my family isn't there for me to support me, but I also feel like I don't want to burden them with all the thoughts and things that are going through my mind in terms of, how long is this going to last? What do we look at in finances? How do I keep busy? How do you manage all the no's that are coming in, and not trying to get your hopes up and not weighing them down um, through this entire process, and kind of show some sort of resilience through that.
What's one specific way that using ChatGPT has helped you make the best of this situation?
Um, I think it's given me a little bit of levity to my feelings and how I'm feeling, and kind of how to flip the script a little bit. My husband laughs at me because he's like, it's spot on, but it's nothing I've not been telling you. Um, and he's like, and maybe it's pointed in a way that, is a little bit more clearer, but essentially we're saying the same thing. So it's kind of helped me navigate my feelings, and looking at, if that door, if that role was a no, it's not a rejection, it's just kind of a redirection or getting you closer to the right opportunity. So it's also kind of helped me navigate like how to prepare for, questions that might come in, or how to,
Yeah.
based on the market and your resume, what should you be asking for a salary? And just kind of closing the loop on some, like, here's how you follow up on, an interview email. It's been a while since I've interviewed, and you know this has really kind of closed up a lot of some of the tools that I use and made them more direct and sharp, and so it's kind of been a little bit helpful for me in that aspect.
I think a lot of people might not realize that unemployment is rarely, like I said at the start, a solo adventure. How do you think this period of unemployment has affected, your relationship with your husband, with your kids, with your friends?
Um, for me, I will say from my husband, it has definitely made me realize how much, and I kind of have already known this, but how much he believes in me and how much he's like, we're gonna be fine. Like, don't doubt yourself. You've done, you know, so many people, you've done so many things. Like, look at your resume and your pedigree. Like, you just need the right time and you've just got to be patient. And he, I believe, I feel like he believes in me more than I believe in myself sometimes, which is hard. Um, but I've definitely been able to see that. And I think from my kids' standpoint, they've definitely given me some compassion in this process where they're like, you're a good mom. Like, you're doing all the right things. You just have to wait for the right timing of everything to kind of follow through. So just be patient. So I've definitely kind of see them mature in that sense as we navigate it all together.
Can you think of one specific instance in the last couple months when he's done something that totally shocked you and lifted your mood or spirits when you really needed it?
Yeah, I mean, we tend to have morning conversations. His hours are a little all over the place and he works kind of later in the day. And yesterday, actually, I got a no from a company, which I was okay with the no. I think I was more upset that that was one less option that I had for a potential opportunity for a position. And he kind of just stepped back and was like, but this is just one step closer to the right role, right? Like, we're gonna be okay. We don't, while yes, it would be nice for you to have a job and we'd be okay, like, I don't want you to just take something to take something. Um, just I'm not, I felt like I was letting him down or that I was letting our family down. And he was like, it is the complete opposite of that. Like from day one, you were working your LinkedIn, you were applying for jobs, you were networking with people, like you've hit the ground running. And what felt like that would be the natural reaction, he was like, Not everybody does that. So just give yourself some grace and it's going to work out in our favor." So, like I said, I think he's been like my biggest champion through this entire thing. And I know that that feels heavy on on a partner when you're now relying on just their income. So I feel like he's really kind of taken that on and really just like helped me kind of navigate my feelings through that.
What what made you think that you were letting the family down? Where I think I've heard a lot of unemployed people say that. Where do you think that's coming from for you?
Yeah, I mean, because it's I I the thing that I struggle with is I've been working since I was of age to work and even 14 kind of doing side hustles and working with family on side jobs or whatever to bring in income. And I feel like this
So that this has been
situation,
your identity.
yeah,
Being a worker has been your identity for 30 years, then, right?
yeah, absolutely. And because of that, when that's stripped away, I'm like, now what do I do? And because that's been what I've done and how I've helped to provide for my family, and now I'm relying on unemployment to help bridge us until I can get a job. Every time I feel like I get a no, I'm like, is it something that I did? Should I have tailored my resume something different? Should I have said something different in an interview? And in some cases, you don't even get an interview. You're just like, thanks, but
Right.
no thanks. And even if that, like, you have to keep a log of all the jobs that you've been applying for. And when you don't hear, I just go out to the website and see that job is no longer posted. So I'm like, I guess I didn't get the job, which is
Yeah.
fine, but it kind of feels like a letdown when you're like everybody's telling you you'll be fine, you'll do great, any company will be glad to have you, you're more than qualified for the positions, and then you get a no and you're like, okay, so maybe I'm not, and you kind of feel like you're letting them down in that aspect.
Obviously you had a really impressive career progression over the last 20 years, and you said this was the first time you were unemployed. When you look back at times that when you were able to land a job previously, what do you think the key was to landing those good jobs in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I've been impacted throughout my career, specifically at, the role I was in or the company I was at for 20 years. I think the difference was is I was in person and people really got to know me, what I could do. I was in their, in their office talking to them, networking in person. And when you kind of lose that aspect of this whole, like, I'm applying to a job of 2,000 other people that might be doing the same job, they're only relying on me on paper versus me in person and what I can do and what I can bring to the table. And so I feel like that has definitely been a challenge in terms of like people not being able to experience me in form versus just a piece of paper.
Yeah, and to that, following up on that, what do you think, people that might only see a piece of paper might not know about what everything is that you bring to the table?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's a lost art in that. I've been looking through, LinkedIn and seeing that I'm not the only person who feels that way. And um, someone mentioned like bring job fair back, like bring these in-person job fairs back where you get to actually have a conversation with that person. And, you know, I've hired people throughout my career which, looked really good on paper and then turned out that maybe they just weren't the best fit for that role or vice versa, and I think being able to be in person and have a true conversation with them, um, you get a little bit more out of the sense of the person that they are and their skill set and what they're able to do than just reading what's on a resume.
Yeah. And, so obviously you got, is there any really positive memories about interviewing for jobs that you did end up landing that you were like, I really liked that and I'd love to have that kind of interview experience again?
Yeah, I mean, I've been exposed to, a multitude of different types of interviews, whether they're just virtual, single, or panel. And I feel like I've been able to, I think the key is preparing as much as you can for those interviews, just having, some sort of an example or in, questions they may ask or whatnot. But um, I feel like you can tell when you walk away from an interview if it's the right job for you. And um I do miss that in-person feeling of being in front of someone and really just kind of feeding off, that conversational interview process versus just a script of questions that they have to ask.
Yeah. Um, so going back again to kind of the, I don't know what we're going to call it, the bad moment, the bad place.
Yeah.
What was something that you were so proud of in your work that you just kind of miss doing on a day-to-day basis now?
Feeling like I can contribute to the bigger picture. I feel like I have this drive, this motivation, this tenacity to do a job and do a job well. And I've found where I kind of, it's the small things you miss, like getting up in the morning and going to log on to a computer to start your day and check your email and see what we need to do, and kind of the hustle and bustle of like, go to this meeting and do this and plan that and go here and do that. And now it's like, okay, now how do I fill that day? What does that look like for me? And I miss being able to give that to a team or, a simple team meeting, even just preparing for that and saying, look at all the things that we're doing and where we're taking it to the next level. Like it's those little things that you miss that you didn't realize that may have felt one way when you were working, but now that you're not doing it, you're like, gosh, like I was contributing so much and now I don't feel like I am.
Yeah, that contributing so much thing. I think that so many active employees, especially people who take a lot of pride in their work, maybe subconsciously sort of have this belief that like there is no way this company can continue without me.
Mhm.
I'm the glue holding this place together, and then you lose your job, and they're still business as usual for them. Is that
Yeah.
something that's crossed your mind these past few months?
Um, Maybe to an extent, and maybe the situation in this position is a little bit different. Again, like I say, there's not too much I can get into, but
Of course, of
um,
course.
with this scenario specifically, I think it's a little bit easier to know. Like again, it wasn't a me thing; it was a business decision, and kind of the path that they were going. So in that sense, um, I'm okay with knowing, again, it's not just me. Um, in previous roles, again, in those situations, every situation has been a little bit different in terms of why I was impacted. But at the end of the day, I think I find comfort in knowing that they were all truly just business decisions and nothing to do with, my seat specifically.
Is there anything that we as workers can do to, insure ourselves against business decisions? Because, that's something a lot of people say, oh, it's just a business decision, but
Yeah.
business decisions mean we can't afford our medicine, can't afford our health insurance. What can workers do so that they're not as at risk against a business that wants to be, doesn't need us or thinks they don't need us anymore?
Yeah, no, that is a great question, and it's one I've been asking myself through this entire process is how do I set myself up so that, you know, should this happen again, that I'm a little more prepared. And I think in this situation, networking has been huge for me. I'm learning that LinkedIn is a good resource. Um, really holding up tight to those relationships, getting in front of, the people that you work with, whether they're internal, external customers, um, that might, up, whether it's leadership up or, peers that you're working with. Um, it's not to say that it's not going to happen again or it couldn't happen again. I think in this world, there's just so many variables that are introduced now that could potentially impact your position or the direction of the company or the company entirely. And because of that, for me, I've just kind of taken away like how much networking and having those business relationships have really helped me, whether they've landed me the interview or at least gotten me to the next person that I could talk to, has been beneficial. And I don't think I realized how many people I had in my network until this kind of happened. I mean, there would be days that I go sit somewhere and I'd literally just go through my phone and call every single person that I used to work with or worked close to and said, like, this is what's going on. What can we do?
A lot of people find that it's hard to, they feel guilty. Oh, I haven't talked to them in 6 months.
Mm.
And they probably don't want to hear me. How did you find the courage to say, to do the thing that was going to be helpful to you, even if it might have felt uncomfortable?
Um, I just kept in mind my family. Like, again, I have a family to support. I have bills to pay. And because of that, I'm like, I'm going to do whatever I need to do. It was literally boots to the ground, hitting the pavement and just calling, calling, calling. And I was like, if networking were a job, I would not need one. That's how I felt through this entire process.
Um, has this period of unemployment led to any dramatic changes in terms of, what you see yourself wanting to do on the back half of your career?
Um, I will say not so much that. Um, it's been more so like my faith, I think. I've really kind of leaned into that, I will say, and
Hmm.
kind of saying there's only so much I can control. And whether it's the universe
Hmm.
or God or however you kind of see that, um, that's what's kind of, I think, really helped ground me in this situation. I kind of go through a checklist of what did I do today? How did I push through? How am I networking? How am I applying? How am I showing up for any potential interviews or conversations that I'm going to have that might spark some sort of interest in a company? And then the rest, I'm like, for me, I've just got to give it to God. Like there's some sort of path that I feel like I'm supposed to be on, and I'm doing what I feel like I can do as much as I can do, and the rest I kind of just got to leave it up to that.
Um, following up on that, where I was asking about if it kind of changed what you wanted to do with your career or what thoughts you have had. What have you learned about yourself these last few months? Well, being unemployed that you didn't
Just how
realize before.
driven. Yeah, just how driven I am. I
I got to stop you there. Your career path is remarkable. Why did it take you till 43 to realize that?
I I don't know. I feel like it's because it's just been so natural to me. I've always wanted to progress in my career. I I I will tell you to just to be fully transparent, I didn't have a lot of role models growing up aside, I mean, my mom was a single mom and I kind of saw how much she struggled. And I tell her like, I thank you for that struggle and seeing how she worked paycheck to paycheck. And I said, I need to figure out how I make my life where I'm not doing that. Like I want to set myself up for the best success. And I had one position where I was like, I started at Cardinal at, the fax team, and it was an entry level position. And I remember kind of sitting there handing out faxes to people to process orders or talk to customers. And I said, why is it that I can't do that? So I walked into my manager's office and said, what do I need to do to get to that point? And she's like, you need a degree. And so I enrolled in college the very next day. And it took me years to get my degree. I got married very young. I had kids very young. And because of that, I was navigating the world of having kids and, a growing family and going to college and progressing in my career at the same time. And so because of that, I just had that drive and motivation. And I guess it just felt natural because I'm like, I know this is what I want to do. I want to move up. I want to lead people. I want to contribute to the bottom line. I know I have the skill set to do that. And when all of that stops, I think you realize like it was just definitely different, I guess you could say. And so it kind of made me step back and analyze myself and I kind of realized like how much drive that is to get to that point.
What is something you've learned about just career paths in general, especially over these last few months?
Um,
Any big wake up calls or anything?
yeah, I think being in the space that I'm in, it is a good thing and it's a bad thing, right? Because you can be looked at as very niche and not having the skill set that's required for certain positions that open up, but then or the experience, I should say. But then the conversations I'm having is like, but look at my skill set. Look at the things that I've done. I've never been a government expert. I've never been a pre-source kitting expert when I took those roles on, but I had the skill sets and the drive and the motivation to know that I could learn the job and then excel in it. So it's
Hmm.
really been kind of having those types of conversations. Um, to see if I could at least get my foot in the door in some positions.
Yeah. Is there anything that, you thought at the start of the job search a few months ago that has not turned out to be true?
Um, no, I think opposite. I knew this was going to be hard. Um,
How'd you know that?
I guess looking at the situation and knowing that remote is a blessing and it's kind of a curse.
Hmm.
Being able to work remotely does definitely provide a lot more work-life balance. In the same sense, I'm not in front of people in all day, every day networking with them, right? And so
Hmm.
in this situation when my role was impacted, it's just me. You close up your computer, you ship it away, and now it's just you, right? And so I am feeling like I knew that was going to be a struggle because I was like, so where am I going to go from here? What are my options? If I was like in a company like I previously was like at Cardinal, there would be opportunities to go and sit, like I said, in somebody's office and say, like, hey, I'm looking for a job. My job was impacted. What can I do? I am forced to utilize like, LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor to try and get my resume out there. I got to the point where you mentioned, like, do I take a different job just to bring money in so that I can pay my bills? And what does that do for my career? Or am I wasting their time? There's just so many questions that are involved in that entire process. And I mean, I even looked at like, do I go down the insurance path? Do I become a realtor? Like, do I get my
I got
license?
I got to stop you there though. This question of am I wasting their time? Why is that something you even care about?
Um, because I look at it from a hiring manager's perspective too. I've hired many people in my career that it takes a lot of effort to go through a resume to interview a person who may potentially be the person for this job. And if they're not fully engaged, but you think that they're a good fit for the role, but you don't know their intention, then I'm back at the drawing board again. So I kind of look at it from that standpoint as well. Um, and maybe
Do
that's
you think the company, do you think your company did you that same courtesy last
no.
fall?
And that's the thing
Right.
is like,
So why are you
I'm
that's why
just
I'm
a
asking why you're doing
number.
this.
I know it's a great question. And I
Is
think
this some people pleasing behavior, Maria?
it probably is. You're probably very spot on, but that's just kind of how I look at it. I know what I need to do to survive and provide for my family, but at the same time, I don't want to, I don't know, I don't want to put myself in a position to where I'm sacrificing, time that could be put somewhere else too.
Yeah, and it's just a tough decision though when, that sacrifice involves a paycheck.
Yeah,
That's always the struggle.
yeah.
What is what are you looking for in your next job apart from, responsibilities and whatnot at a cultural level at what do you hope to find in your next opportunity?
It's a great question. Security. I think at the end of the day, and none of that is promised, right? Like you said, we're just a number. But I feel like I want to work for a company where there's some longevity, where there's opportunity for growth, where I can, contribute, um, and just
But I
again,
feel like every company says, "Oh, we have opportunity for growth."
yeah,
Have you ever found one? Have you ever found one that says they don't have that?
no, no.
Right.
I mean,
And so how do you know which ones actually do have opportunity for growth?
for
I'm putting
me,
you on the hot seat today, Maria.
you are, and I am totally good with that. Um, it's for me, it's researching the company, right? I feel like there's pros and cons. The bigger the company is, the more they can afford to be more lean if they need to make some changes, right? So they can, you know, do away with maybe your position because somebody else at a lower pay can be more stretched to do your job, right? But then I feel like, again, at a larger company, there may be opportunity for me to navigate or pivot my career into a different path. That's exactly what I did at Cardinal. I went from a customer service to reporting to, a kitting position to another, potential, do I go training or do I go a supervisor route? Like, again, those are opportunities where I can kind of web myself through the company and still, you know, perform well and still excel in my career, where I feel like as you're doing your research to these companies that you're applying for, you're seeing, is that an opportunity for me, to do that? When you work for a smaller company, sometimes that's not always an option. They're not, people are not going to move from their roles. So you kind of become stagnant. And I feel like when that happens, then you're even more at risk sometimes, for impact. So that's
Yeah.
kind of just the eyes that I've been looking through when I'm looking
Right.
at jobs.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about security, and my first question is anything secure these days?
No, it's
I think
not.
that's a tough
It's
ask.
not. It's definitely not. But yeah, I mean, it's not. And that's the scary part is that now I'm looking like every position I apply for or the interview I get, how long am I going to be able to be in this role before this potentially happens again? And then what do I do?
All right, I'm going to Tony Robbins you for a moment. Let's not think about security. What do you what do you let's say that all of a sudden all your finances are taken care of rest of your life. What are you looking for in a job then?
Um, Something where I feel like I can make a difference, whether it's leading people,
What does that mean to
um,
you? What does making a difference mean to you?
where I walk away and someone, and it's not looking for their validation, but knowing that what I can do or provide to them is beneficial, whether it's to the company or to that job specifically. I found myself volunteering a lot recently, and specifically at church. And they were kind of like, I've had a couple of people stop and say, like, you being here has made a difference, right? And so I don't know if it's so much the validation or if it's so much actually what I'm doing is helping, but looking for that in a company or my next profession, whatever that is that's the one thing that I feel like I would love to have in that job.
Is that something that companies value, do you think? People that make a difference?
I don't know. I feel like that could waver based on the person that you're working with. I mean, you may have a direct manager who truly does appreciate everything that you do and what you contribute to the team, and that could be from their perspective because you've made their job easier, or that's just kind of the person they are. Or you could have a manager or a hiring manager that doesn't really care as long as you're doing what you're doing and they're good, then it is what it is.
Yeah, and you could also have a direct manager that doesn't want their report to make a difference, that doesn't want their report to shake things up or overshadow them. That's what you never know going into a job. What your manager is truly like. You can't. 30 minutes, 1 hour of talking to someone, you're not ever going to really know them, and that's the risk of going into any job. You're not just taking on a job title. You're not just working for a company. You're probably, perhaps most importantly, working for a manager. I
Hmm.
think that's something a lot of job seekers don't think about enough. They just, look at the, name on the side of the building or look at that paycheck and I don't know, what, 60, 70% of your success in a role might just be about how invested your manager is in your success. I think that's something that, more job seekers need to consider. And
Absolutely.
going with that, what do you think is the key for a job seeker that, when they're interviewing, and that's something that's not talked about a lot enough. You're not just doing a, song and dance routine. They're there because they, have the privilege of getting to talk to you, the job seeker. So what is something that you specifically look for that would either be a green flag or red flag when you're interviewing with someone?
Um, I guess just the types of questions that they're asking, right? Like they've obviously, if they're reaching out to you, they feel like on paper you're good, right? So it's more so the types of questions in terms of the company and what they have to offer in terms of their benefits, which are all standard. But I feel like I can tell a lot by the recruiter too, in terms of their just openness in conversation. I feel like they're the forefront of the company for me, whether it's sitting in the HR role or just, an outside company that they're, utilizing for those services. And um, I'm all about, I know it sounds bad, but there are companies that say like it's a family environment, right? And you want to, you want to be you want to work for a company that you feel good working for, right? And for
What do
me,
you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Feel good working for?
um,
I am grilling you today. I am
I
putting you on the
know,
hot
and
seat,
that's
aren't I?
okay. And that's okay. Um, I, I've had the privilege of working, for a company for a really long time, and I've seen multiple managers. Um, but still at the end of the day, I felt it was the people that I was there for, not so much maybe the company itself. And there have been some companies where, they told me this is a great family oriented environment. These are all the great things that we do for a company. And the people may have not been all of that. You know what I mean? And so because of that,
Yeah.
it's definitely, those are the types of things that I'm looking for too, because you're at work with these people more than sometimes you are with your own family. And sometimes that can make a really long day or it can really make the day go by fast. So those are kind of the also some of the things that I'm looking for when I'm, applying for these jobs or interviewing for these types of roles.
What is a typical week of job searching for you right now?
Um, right now, I will say it's kind of pivoted, right? So at the onset, it was updating my resume, spending time on LinkedIn, applying for jobs, thinking what other opportunity, like how can I use my skill set in something different other than like maybe it's not government contracting? Is it customer service because I've done that? Is it director of operations because I've done that? Is it a project management role because I have the skill sets for that? So it's really challenged me to kind of look at it from that perspective. And then it's been applying, but then it's again spending time trying to, take your resume and tailor it towards that specific role so you hit this ATS and percentage that you even get looked at. It's following up, it's logging all of this stuff that I have to do it for unemployment to say you've done at least 3 each week, right? Then it's following up. I've gotten to the point where, and this sounds bad, but, or maybe it doesn't, I don't know, but I've looked at recruiters.
You're not allowed to say this sounds bad anymore. I am banning that phrase.
I've
Don't censor yourself.
I've literally taken the roles and found them on LinkedIn, applied for the position directly, seen who I've been connected with, whether it was someone who went to the same college as I did or who worked at the same companies as I did. And if I can't message them directly, I'm going on social media and I'm finding them through Facebook or I'm finding them through Instagram. And I'm like, hey, you don't know me, but I applied for this job at your company and we either went to the same school or whatever in common. Can you get me to the hiring manager? And or can you get me to HR? Or is there somewhere else that I can talk to figure out how do I get my resume in front of someone else? So then for a while it was doing a lot of that and it was taking up so much of my time. Like I was letting it consume me.
Did you get any positive effects from doing that?
I did get some folks that did respond back um, and send me information, but then it kind of just went nowhere, right? Like I went to a GMB box or I sent it to a person directly, or then you're stuck with like you have to upgrade through LinkedIn in order to message these folks. So, um, in some instances it really didn't go anywhere. I would say that's probably been most of the case, but at least I've been able to say like someone referred me or this person gave me your information. But it's definitely, it makes me feel like I'm doing a little bit more than just an application. um I will tell you, timing is everything. The time that my role was impacted to the time that I actually started seeing traction was horrible timing. You have Christmas, you have end of fiscal years, you have the beginning of the year where people are just coming back into their positions. Um, and that messes with you mentally because you can't kind of see that, or I couldn't at that point in time. Like I didn't take a lot of that into consideration, that the reason I'm not hearing anything is because people are not there. They're on vacation or they're, working for next year. And maybe the position that was posted is now on hiring freeze because they got to figure out another budget, but they might potentially fill it later. So timing in that is huge because it wasn't until I would say February, end of January to February, that I started getting callbacks about potential interviews.
More than any other guest I've had, I've noticed you use this phrase, my role was impacted. I think any high school English teacher would not like the use of the passive voice there.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, isn't it actually true that business leaders decided to eliminate the role?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's something I think sometimes job seekers don't like to face the reality that humans made the decision to get rid of their job. It's maybe too painful to face out. I don't know. I definitely noticed that phrasing, you using that phrase a lot.
Um, Whether it was my job was impacted or someone made the
Hmm.
decision, either way, I'm without a job.
Yeah.
So I've
Yeah.
tried to say it in the fact that I'm not saying I lost my job because it wasn't me.
Hmm.
Because I've caught
Yeah.
myself saying, or someone saying, oh, she lost her job. She lost, like, but it wasn't. It wasn't
Yeah.
my decision. It wasn't anything I did. So I've tried to redirect it in the fact that my job was eliminated. It was my
Hmm.
position that was impacted, or many positions
Right.
that were impacted. So I've been looking at it from that standpoint because it was nothing I did.
And of course not. I'm saying let's put the blame on the business owners
It is
that
the
make that
business.
made the
It
decision.
was their poor decisions that, ultimately affected many people's lives, you know?
I love that. That needs to be said more often. Thank you
Yeah,
for spilling tea. It took 50 minutes, but we got there. All
I
right.
know.
I got a question. If and I guess I have a lot of questions. If Maria Tanner hired Maria Tanner to be her job search coach, what would job search coach Maria Tanner say that job seeker Maria Tanner should be doing differently right now?
Um, Give yourself some grace because I don't.
Okay.
Through this entire process. It's hard. It's hard for anyone, no matter how great your resume looks, no matter how much money you make, no matter how much of an impact you've had at a company, none of that matters. It really doesn't. Um, I wish that, at least for me, somebody told me, like, break down your day. Like, don't spend so much time trying to apply. Like, be a little bit more strategic in what you're doing because all of these no's that you're applying for because you just want a job kind of affect your mentality and your confidence and
Yeah.
your pride in what you're doing. So give yourself some grace and really sit back and say, like, where am I going to spend most of my time? What am I truly looking for? Don't settle. I mean, there may be instances where, like, you have to. Unemployment only lasts for so long. So you may have to take a side job to bring some money in. But at the end of the day, don't discredit everything that you've worked for because there is going to be a position that's out there for you. And it's all based on timing. And sometimes it's not on our time. But give yourself some grace through the process that as long as you're trying, something is going to come up. It's just a matter of when.
What's making it hard to give yourself grace?
I think we're always our worst critic.
What gives you hope moving forward in the job search?
Um, it's funny. Right now, I guess I have two interviews that are second rounds. And then I have had about two or three companies reach out and say, we love your resume. We think we could pull something together for you. Let's talk. So I have had like two or three calls on my calendar about that. Like we're looking to do this. And sometimes it's in sales, which it's not one of my stronger suits, but I definitely, if need to, maybe do that.
How do you know that? How do you know that it's not one of your stronger suits?
You know what? That's fair. I think it's scary. Sales is scary because I'm like, if somebody told me
Why?
like, no, I don't want to buy this thing from you, I guess I'm eating ramen for the next week. I don't know. Um,
We
but
need to get
yeah,
that confidence up, Maria.
I know. I think this whole process has definitely messed with me for sure. But um, yeah, I would definitely say it's starting to take a turn. I do love the fact that, people are reaching out to me and saying like, you have the skill set that we need that we're looking for. And I think again, that's just the whole niche thing. It's either you're because you're in government contracting, it could be really beneficial to a company, especially if it's not their strong suit, or it could be like because you do that, like that's where your experience is. You don't have it in this, so we're not going to look at you.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense, yeah. Before I ask my final, I try kind of like to ask the same final question to every guest. Is there anything else you want to say that about, this process, your hope for the future, anything else that you'd like to share and let listeners know before we get wrapping up?
Yeah, I would say definitely just give yourself some grace through this entire process. Don't be like me sometimes and be so hard on
I was
yourself.
going to say, you start physician heal thyself.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay to feel the feelings of, job loss. It's okay to feel the feelings of the pressure of the world because they're real. I mean, we all have bills that we have to pay and, deadlines to meet of when they're due, and it's all going to work out. I know it feels really tough when you're in the middle of all of it. And I feel like the more you kind of step back and look at all the things that you are doing. I mean, you're applying, you're networking, you're talking to people, you're getting out there, you're trying to show these companies who you are and what you can do. And not a lot of people can say that about themselves when stuff like this happens. Some people just say like, just gonna stay in bed all day and if I get a job, I get a job, and if I don't, that's okay too. And um so I would say definitely just give yourself some grace in all of this.
Wonderful. And my final question for everyone, if I'm the hiring manager of your dream job, it's you and two other great candidates, why should I pick you? What do you do better than 90% of people?
Yeah, I will say I'm me. I'm like 100% me when I come to the job. Um, I am a hard worker, and I know that sounds very cliche, but um, I've worked really hard to get to this point. I've juggled a lot, and not all by myself, but I've done a lot. Um, as hard as it is, I am more transparent as a leader than maybe most. Um, but I'm I'm me. And like it or not, like at the end of the day, that's just who I am. And so I feel like that's all I mean I can offer. I mean, I can tell you I can do X, Y, and Z in my position, but at the end of the day, I'm just me.
Well, I like that. I like it, Maria.
But
Thank you
I
so
want to
much for
say
joining the show.
no, I want to say thank you for doing this. I think it's important. I don't it's a new world that we're navigating through this, and there's a lot I think this has shown that there are a lot more people going through this process, and everybody's story is a little bit different, but at the same time it can be very lonely. I mean, you could have a great support system at home and a great, Rolodex of people that network and say, I've been through this, you'll be fine, you'll get through this, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that it's lonely. And I think this is just another avenue of people that you're exposed to, that you're getting to, that, you can express that there's more of us out there.
That's a wonderful ending. Thank you so much, Maria.
Yeah, thank you.